So what are the types of energies that we're capable of detecting, that we have specialized sensory neurons, that will allow us to detect? Well, they're illustrated, some of them here. First of all, we should be aware of what are known as the laws of thermodynamics, right? Where energy is neither created nor destroyed. That's, the first law. The second is that it can be converted, however, from one form to another. And we're going to be focusing on, how neurons carry messages, how the form of energy that they utilize, and this is going to be electrochemical energy. Neurons are sort of uniquely designed to, basically carry, electric currents, right? We're going to see these are waves of what we're going to refer to, and don't panic yet, but depolarization, repolarization that's going to propagate, from one end of a neuron to another. And specialized neurons that look often very different, for example, than, than, the neurons that the classical neuron that I just showed you, are going to be arrayed around the body and allow for, the conversion of one form of energy and, something specialized like touch, for example. This is actually, we'll see later, a Meissner's corpuscle, which is found in your fingertips, for example, and when you press, you're going to depress this portion, and you're going to initiate a current that'll carry this information, basically back to the central nervous system and ultimately the brain. So, the forms of energy that you can detect are sort of illustrated here. There is, for example, that cut finger, and that actually is not pain. That actually is tissue damage. This is damage to your cells. Your perceptual experience is often going to be pain, right? However, the physical stimulus is the disruption of cells, the crushing or the cutting, literally the ripping apart of the membranes that surround cells that make up you. And this ability to detect injury, this is referred to as nociception. And we have specialized sensory neurons that will respond to the environmental change that occurred with injury. These are called nociceptors. And the nociceptors, we're going to see, have evolved specializations to bind actually some of the chemicals, mostly some of the proteins that are released from damaged cells into the extracellular environment. And these proteins are supposed to remain inside cells. So the fact that they've now been released, this is an environmental change that these specialized sensory cells, have evolved to, detect and convert, that detection into, an electrical message, working its way back towards your central nervous system and ultimately your brain, where the perceptual experience of pain is going to be, basically processed, right, and experienced. So that's one form of energy we can certainly detect. It's actually a form of what we call somatosensation. Somato means body. Sensation is, this is sensation from the body. And, Aristotle, who initially came up with the five senses, he basically thought that, at least the way it was described, right, that all the somatosensation is touch. But injury, nociception, detection of damaged tissue is another very critical form of somatosensation that we'll explore later. There's also, next to that is a hamburger, right? And this could be a veggie burger or an Impossible Burger. But basically, there are chemicals in food. And when you chew them and you break them down, we're going to see this is going to be one of our ancient chemical senses, gustation. Those constituent molecules are going to actually bind to specialized receptors that are localized in the mouth and be converted into activity, be converted into electrical messages heading back towards the central nervous system. Here is Aristotle's touch. You can see there's an image of somebody pushing on a button. Here's the sun, right? This is going to be electromagnetic radiation, heading towards our bodies and, our eyes, of course. And electromagnetic radiation, we're going to see, is a wide spectrum of energy. And what we detect with photoreceptors that are found in the eyes is actually a pretty narrow, sliver of that spectrum. And then we have chemicals floating, in the air, basically volatile, aerosolized, and these are going to be drawn into your nose, for example, in the nasal cavity. We're going to see we've got quite an array of specialized sensory cells that have evolved, specialized detection equipment to bind specific odorants, the chemicals that are floating around, wafting off of things, potentially that burger, and then setting off, specific, electrical messages being converted into an electrochemical response and transmitted back along neurons into the brain. Then we also have, and this is really a critical component of somatosensation, is this viscerosensation, sensation from the gut. Basically how you feel has a lot to do with how your gut is feeling and how your organs are functioning. And you've got lots and lots of specialized sensory cells that are arrayed throughout the body that can detect different aspects of the internal environment of you, what we refer to as the internal milieu. And then we also have, for example, the sound waves, right, that we talked about earlier, these pressure changes that are propagating, through a medium, typically, air, but you can also hear through water or underwater. And then this last, illustration here is also one that was missed by Aristotle in his list of 5 senses, right? And this is balance and acceleration. So we have, specialized detection equipment that can tell when we're spinning this direction or spinning that direction, or, what we call angular acceleration, or moving forward, moving back, sort of linear acceleration, tilt, and gravity. This is vestibular sense, and we're going to see there are very specialized neurons that also respond and can transduce, convert, from the physical energy of that acceleration into a neuronal response.